Welcome back to the deep dive. We are looking at a text today that is, well, it's deceptively small. It's a piece of ancient poetry that is only 7 verses long. I actually timed myself reading it earlier. It took about 45 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you look at the data, the sheer amount of commentary this thing generates, this tiny text is like a nuclear reactor for theology.
That is a great way to put it. Small footprint, massive energy output. We are talking about Psalm 110.
Right. And looking at the stack of notes we have here, this keeps coming up. It's called the most quoted psalm in the New Testament.
It is.
It feels like every major writer in the first century was just obsessed with these 7 verses.
They were. And it's because Psalm 110 isn't just a song, or a nice poem. It's a solution to a riddle. It's technically classified as a royal psalm.
So for a king's coronation or something.
Exactly. But when you actually get into the grammar and the claims it makes, it breaks all the rules of how ancient Israelite society was supposed to work.
Breaks the rules how? Because when I first read it, it sounds very kingly, very official.
Oh, it's official, but it proposes a level of authority and a combination of roles, specifically king and priest, that were historically, forbidden to combine. It reads like a blueprint for a type of super leader that didn't actually exist when it was written. It's projecting something way into the future.
Okay, so we have a mystery on our hands. A text that punches way above its weight class.
For sure.
Our mission today is to decode this thing. We need to unpack all the symbols, the footstools, the dew, the brook, all of it, and figure out why this ancient blueprint matters for how we view leadership and patience and trust today.
Exactly. The goal isn't just a history lesson. It's to understand the structure of ultimate authority and how that helps us trust God in a chaotic world.
Okay, let's jump in. Verse 1. It opens with a conversation. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool.
This is the headline, but in English, you miss a crucial nuance right out of the gate. We see Lord twice, and it just looks redundant. But in the original Hebrew, the first Lord is Yahweh. That's the divine personal name of God.
Okay.
The second Lord is Adonai, which is a title for a human master or a king.
So it's God speaking to the king, a divine invitation.
Yes. And the command is to sit at my right hand. Now, we need to pause there because we hear right hand all the time and we just think, oh, the seat of honor.
Right, like the guest of honor at a dinner party.
It's so much more than that. In the ancient Near East, the right hand isn't just a seat of honor, it's the executive position.
The executive position.
Yeah, if you sit at the king's right hand, you wield the king's power. You are the executor of his will. So God is effectively deputizing this king to rule with divine authority.
That's a massive promotion.
Yeah.
But then there's the condition attached. Until I make thine enemies thy footstool.
Right.
I have to be honest, modern readers kind of gloss over this, but footstool is a weird image. It sounds like furniture, like, sit here while I turn your enemies into an ottoman.
It is definitely not about interior design. It's about humiliation and total dominance. In ancient warfare, we have actual carvings of pharaohs and Assyrian kings resting their feet on the necks of conquered generals.
How?
It's the ultimate sign of, I have dominated you and you can't move unless I let you.
It's brutal. It's total subjugation.
It is. But look at the dynamic here. Who is doing the work? The king is told to sit.
And God says, I will make your enemies a footstool.
Yes.
That seems passive for a king, doesn't it? I mean, usually kings are leading the charge, swinging the sword. Here, he's told to sit and wait.
That's the tension. And that is the first major lesson here about sovereign timing. The king is installed in power, the authority is real, but the total subjugation of the enemy is a process that God is handling.
Hence that little word, until.
Right, until it implies an interval. You are in charge, the victory is guaranteed, but the mop-up operation is still happening.
That's a key insight for later, this idea of already king, but enemies are still present. It's a strange state of being.
It is the definition of the footstool mindset. You are operating from a position of victory, even while you are looking at situations that oppose you. You aren't panicked because you know they are destined to be under your feet.
Okay, moving to verses 2 and 3. We leave the throne room, and it feels like we hit the battlefield. Verse 2 says, the Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies.
There is that tension again. That phrase, rule in the midst, is fascinating. It doesn't say rule once you've secured the borders. It says rule right now while you are surrounded.
Which sounds incredibly stressful, a siege mentality.
It does. But he has this rod of strength, a symbol of divinely backed power. And he isn't alone. This is where we get to the army in verse 3. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power.
I was looking at the notes on that word willing. It implies free will offerings, right?
Yes. It's the same word used for bringing a gift to the temple that you didn't have to bring. This isn't a draft. This isn't conscription.
So they're volunteers.
They are volunteering with this extreme enthusiasm. They are offering themselves up for this mission.
And then we get this poetry that I honestly stumbled over a bit. It says, in the beauties of holiness from the womb of the morning, thou hast the dew of thy youth.
That is some of the most difficult Hebrew in the entire Bible to translate, by the way. It's incredibly dense poetry.
Yeah, womb of the morning sounds a bit abstract. It's not something you expect in a war anthem. What are we looking at here?
Most scholars agree it's military imagery disguised as nature imagery. Think about dew in the Middle East. It appears suddenly at dawn.
Right.
It covers everything, and it's innumerable. Millions of drops.
So it represents the army.
Exactly. It's saying, your volunteers will appear like the dawn fresh, youthful, holy, and covering the landscape. It's a picture of a massive, vital movement that just appears.
Not some old, tired army.
No, it's a youth movement of holiness.
So we have the king at the right hand, this massive volunteer army, and a command to rule in the midst of danger. But then we hit verse 4, and the commentaries are unanimous. This is the pivot point.
It absolutely is.
The mic drop moment of the psalm.
If you miss verse 4, you miss the whole point of why this psalm is so revolutionary.
Okay, let's read it. Verse 4. The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek.
Okay, we need to slow down here. Priest forever. Why is that a plot twist? We just established he's a king. Can a guy have two jobs?
I mean, in today's economy, you almost have to.
True, but not in ancient Israel. This is the crucial context. Under the law of Moses, there was a strict separation of powers.
Right.
The kings came from the tribe of Judah David's line. The priests came from the tribe of Levi Aaron's line. You could not cross those streams. It was like constitutional law.
And what happened if you did? Was it just frowned upon?
Oh, no. It was dangerous. There's a story about King Uzziah, good king for the most part, but he got arrogant and tried to enter the temple to burn incense, a strictly priestly job.
Okay.
The text says he was struck with leprosy instantly.
Wow. So God took that separation seriously. Kings handle justice and war. Priests handle holiness and mediation.
Precisely. You wanted checks and balances. You didn't want one person holding all the religious and political power. But here, in Psalm 110, God takes an oath, which he almost never does, and says this specific figure will be both.
And that's where this name Melchizedek comes in. I feel like I've heard that name, but who is this guy, really?
He's a deep cut from the book of Genesis. He appears way back in the story of Abraham, centuries before the law of Moses.
Right.
Centuries before the tribe of Levi even existed. He was the king of Salem, which is ancient Jerusalem, but the text also says he was priest of the Most High God.
So he was a prototype. He was doing the dual role before it was, illegal.
He was a precedent. By invoking Melchizedek, God is saying, I am establishing a leadership that is older and deeper than the current religious system. This king isn't a priest because he checked the boxes of the Levites. He's a priest by a direct divine appointment that bypasses the whole system.
This fusion seems to be the main insight here about leadership. It's not just about accumulating power.
No, and this is why it matters so much. Think about it. If you have a king who isn't a priest, you have power without empathy.
Tyranny.
Exactly. Rules without mediation. But if you have a priest who isn't a king...
You have mercy without the authority to actually fix anything. You can sympathize, but you can't stop the oppressor. You're nice, but you're toothless.
So the order of Melchizedek is the perfect synthesis. The takeaway here is that ultimate authority requires both the sword of justice and the heart of a mediator.
It's holistic, strength and care.
Correct, and that's why this figure is so unique.
Right, so we have this super leader established, but the psalm doesn't end there on a peaceful note. Verses 5 and 6 go right back to the violence.
Yeah.
And honestly, it gets graphic. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath.
It shifts to the day of wrath. This is judgment language.
And verse 6 says, he shall judge among the heathen, he shall fill the places with the dead bodies, he shall wound the heads over many countries. Fill the places with dead bodies. That is heavy.
It is.
It's hard to square that with the priest image we just talked about.
Yeah.
It feels jarring.
It is heavy, but the source material argues you have to see this as the necessary result of justice. If you are ruling in the midst of enemies, and those enemies represent evil, oppression, corruption, eventually for justice to happen, That evil has to be neutralized.
So the dead bodies aren't just gratuitous violence. It's the finality of removing the opposition.
Exactly. It's the end of the tolerance of evil. And notice that phrase, "wone the heads" over many countries. Some translations say, "crush the head over the wide earth."
That sounds like a callback to Genesis crushing the head of the serpent.
It's very likely connected. It signifies dismantling the leadership structure of evil. It's not just fighting foot soldiers, it's taking out the heads, the ultimate rival powers that stand against God. It's a statement of absolute sovereignty.
It's saying that no matter how powerful a human leader looks, they are subject to this king's judgment.
Right. There is no immunity. Politics, wealth, armies, none of it protects you from this ultimate justice.
And then, just when you think the psalm is going to end on this note of carnage, we get this sudden shift in the final verse. Verse 7. It's almost cinematic. He shall drink of the brook in the way. Therefore shall he lift up the head.
It's a beautiful close-up shot after the wide-angle battle scene.
But what does it mean, drink of the brook in the way? Is he taking a break?
I don't think it's a break, like a timeout or a vacation. Think about a pursuit. You are chasing the enemy, it's hot, you are exerting maximum energy.
Okay.
You don't stop and set up camp. You scoop up water from a stream on the path, in the way, and you keep moving.
So it's about sustained vitality.
Yes. It shows that this king isn't exhausted. He isn't depleted by the battle. He finds refreshment right in the middle of the conflict.
And therefore shall he lift up the head.
That's the posture of victory. A defeated man hangs his head. The victor lifts his head. He finishes the campaign with his head high, fully energized.
So if we zoom out, we have quite an arc here. Coronation in heaven, a volunteer army at dawn, a priesthood that breaks the rules, a battlefield of judgment, and then a refreshing drink of water.
It covers everything from theology to military strategy to personal endurance.
So let's bring this home.
Yeah.
Why does this matter to the person listening right now? We aren't ancient kings. How does this strengthen our trust in God?
Well, let's start with that concept of leadership we unpacked. Whether you are a parent, a manager, or just leading yourself, that fusion of king and priest.
The balance of authority and care.
Right. I think we all tend to over-index on one. Some of us are natural kings. We like order, execution, being right. But we can crush people. We become tyrants in our own homes or offices. We need to integrate the priest, the ability to mediate, to empathize, to serve.
And others of us are natural priests. We want everyone to be happy. We listen. We sympathize. But we let standards slide.
Right.
We can't protect our team from bad actors because we're afraid of conflict. We lack the rod of strength.
Exactly. Psalm 110 suggests that the target, the divine standard, is the fusion. The Melchizedek standard is leading with integrity and empathy. You need to be able to make the hard call, like a king, while caring for the person, like a priest.
That's a great diagnostic question for us. Which side am I leaning too heavily on? Am I all sword and no prayer, or all prayer and no spine?
And then there's the footstool mindset. This is huge for our trust in God.
Sit at my right hand until...
We live in a culture of instant results. If something is wrong or we see injustice, we panic if it isn't fixed by Tuesday. We feel like if God hasn't fixed it yet, he must not be in control.
We want the tweet that destroys the enemy immediately. We want the dead bodies stage right now.
Right. But this psalm teaches a confident patience. The king sits. Why? Not because he's lazy, but because he trusts the timeline of the one who promised.
So when we are ruling in the midst of enemies, which could be a toxic work environment, a health struggle, financial stress, the application is to hold your position.
Hold your position. Do not panic. Understand that the opposition is real, but its time is limited. It is being made into a footstool. That process is active, even if it's invisible to you right now.
That's comforting, but it's also really hard. It requires you to give up the need to be the one who delivers the final blow.
That's the core of trusting God's sovereignty. You have to believe that he is actually striking through kings and handling the big picture. Your job isn't to be the general, it's to be one of those willing volunteers we saw.
I also love the application of the brook in verse 7.
The refreshment on the way.
Yeah. I think a lot of us feel like we can't be happy or at peace until the battle is over. I'll rest when this project is done. I'll be happy when I get out of debt.
But the text says he drinks in the way, in the middle of the path.
We need to learn to find those brooks in the middle of the stress.
Absolutely. The sustenance is provided during the struggle, not just after it. If you wait until all your problems are solved to lift up your head, you'll never do it. You have to drink from the brook while you're still in the pursuit. That's how you maintain your walk with God without burning out.
That is a profound thought. The provision is in the path. It changes how I look at my bad days. It's not just survive this, it's where is the brook today?
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground, from ancient priests to modern patients. It's amazing how 7 verses can hold a blueprint for the entire world.
It really is a masterclass.
But as we always say, the insight is only useful if it changes something. We don't want you to just be smarter. We want you to be better equipped.
True.
So here is the question we want to leave you with. How will you apply this information in your life? Specifically regarding how you lead others.
Yeah.
Are you balancing that king and priest dynamic and how you wait on God's timing when you're staring down an enemy?
It's about checking your balance and checking your clock. Are you leading with care? And are you waiting with confidence?
Thanks for diving deep with us today on Psalm 110. We'll see you next time.